March 7th, 2022 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome. I'm Susan Klausmith. I am the acting chair of the commission tonight. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. And your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present their staff report, and we, the commission, will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will begin asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When you do come to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so please take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes does go by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Then the public hearing will be closed, and the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review, or HPDRC, comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. Please note the ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility, and owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please do silence your cell phones at this time. And I will ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves, starting from my left.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair.
I'm Brent Taylor. I'm a building contractor.
Dan Myers. I'm an architect.
And with us tonight we have Dennis Fernandez, Elaine Lunn, Beverly Jusak, and our city attorney tonight is Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. And we will go ahead with the I guess I have to do the minutes now. I was waiting for Dennis. Sorry. We have the minutes from February 7th and February 9th to enter into the record. If I could get a motion for their approval.
I move that we accept the meetings, the meeting minutes for the ARC public hearing of Monday, February 7th, 2022, and Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, as presented.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none, motion carries.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just a couple brief announcements. First of all, I do have the February 2022 administrative approvals to enter into the record. I will provide those to the clerk. Second is we will be meeting on Wednesday, March 9th to conclude our second portion of the cycles for this month. That meeting, as well as this one, obviously does begin at 5:30 p.m. Moving into April, if you recall, we did adjust the schedule for April. Instead of meeting on April the 4th, we will be meeting on April the 6th, which is the Wednesday, for our public hearing, and then we'll determine the necessity of meeting after that if our agenda so demands. With that, we will move on to the disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communication with our legal counsel.
Good evening, Commissioners. Well, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
I have
None.
I have none.
Additionally, will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
I have
None.
Thank you.
We do not have any continuations on the agenda for this evening, so we can move into the swear-in. Anyone who is going to be providing testimony or public comment this evening, please stand and raise your right hand for the swear-in.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
With that, we're ready for our first case.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The first item on your agenda this evening is located at 1909 North Florida Avenue. This is case number ARC 22-75. It is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. You recently saw this property in front of you for a rezoning recommendation. That was in January, and this board voted to recommend to City Council to rezone from CI to RM24. And now the property is back before you for a certificate of appropriateness that is consistent with that new zoning classification. The request is for new construction of an attached 3-unit single-family building with an accessory structure and site improvements. I will go to the photo presentation now. Let me know when you can see it on your screens. Okay, thank you. So this property, as I said, is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. It is shown here in green. Actually, that is not it. But moving on, let's see. Actually, that is it. Never mind. I apologize. I am so sorry. So Florida Avenue runs a block over to the west, and the cross street there is Ross Avenue. The property will be readdressed following this process as a Ross Avenue address. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of the site, showing that there was a house on the site at the time. The property is again shown in green. And this is the present-day aerial photograph of the property, again shown in green. You can see that it is currently vacant. You can see Florida Avenue again, just a block to the west, and Ross Avenue is the street that fronts the site. This is looking south into the subject site. This is looking directly to the west at the house adjacent to the property. This photo is of the vacated alley that is adjacent to the site. So this is actually part of the subject site, part of the alley here. And then this is just to the, this is to the west of the site here. This is property facing Florida Avenue. And then this is across the street on the north side of Ross Avenue. And this photo is also another property that is across the street to the north. Here we are looking east along along Ross Avenue. And here we are looking west on Ross Avenue toward Florida Avenue. And that concludes the photo presentation. So at this time, I'll have the applicant come forward to make his presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ralph Struhler with JV Architect, 2401 North Howard Avenue. I have been sworn. As Elaine alluded to, this is a vacant property with recently rezoned. It is a transition lot between commercial and residential uses. It was originally owned by the YMCA for many years. Go on to the, thank you. There we go. So Ross Avenue is to the north, faces north. We are proposing 3 single-family attached townhouses with 3 detached 2-car garages off of an open alley. And this alley, which is runs east-west between Morgan and then does a 90-degree turn to the south. This alley, which you saw on the photo presentation, the YMCA about 15 years ago paved it, but it's now vacated. So a good portion of this property is actually on that vacated roadway. So This is kind of like the edge of what you saw on the YMCA building. And we are not asking for any reduction of setbacks here. It's, the standard setback is 25 feet with allowed to have an 8-foot porch, which is what we're proposing. We have a 10-foot vehicular entrance off of an alley, and this alley is actually quite wide. It's 16 feet. And then a small courtyard between the primary and the accessory structures. The main elevation, which is here, which is on Ross Avenue, is broken up into three pieces. Okay. So this being the north elevation of the Ross Avenue elevation. So what we've tried to do is segment this again, but with the two opposing ends having these double gables, and then a single gable at the each end of the porches. They have again small gables. The main gable here is a 12-6 gable, and then we have some taller gables that are 12-10 and 12-10 here, and then a 12-6 gable again here at the porch. All of this, and then a shed in the middle, and all of this steps in and out, back and forth, trying to give it some good fenestration and appropriate scaling. All of these triple windows are all the same size. The center unit would have a centered entrance with two small single windows on each side, again the same size as all of those. And then these other entrances would have single side lights. The middle one has double side lights. The west elevation, which does face essentially Florida Avenue, we've tried to break down the scale of this elevation in particular, because this would be seen, at least for the foreseeable future, by people walking by. So we've broken this down here. We've clipped this corner, which you can see on the front elevation how that works. This is for two reasons. One, to break the scale down, and then two, this is RM24. RM24 requires that once you get above 30 feet that you come in 1 foot for each foot over 30 feet. We're about a 34-foot tall building, which is very much in scale and keeping to the house directly to the east. And then again, on the rear, we have some similar, for the accessory structure, with some similar details of how the separation between the standard smooth hardy board siding and then board and bat in the gable ends with some gable trim. So the east elevation is similar to the west, other than we do not have that secondary gable trim or bump out, because that faces directly to the house to the east. And then on the rear, we have some porches all here underneath, and then with some bedrooms above on top. I can show you what that looks like in the floor plan. And these all face inward towards the courtyard. The courtyard is the area, of course, between the accessory structure and the main structure. These are the other two elevations of the accessory structure. We've tried to break down at least the ones facing the alley here. We've added a couple more gables with similar detailing. We have some garage doors, of course, and then pedestrian entrances facing the courtyard, which we would have some breaking up of those three houses in either a fence or a wall, and then of course simplified detailing of that. Our typical wall section is here. We're gonna do a 10-foot first floor, probably out of block. We're still exploring that. Then the second floor, a 9-foot second floor out of frame. All of the, excuse me. Then we're gonna have an 8-foot porch. The detailing is typical for all of the new construction that we see that we're gonna do. Either vinyl or aluminum windows, good quality, thick sash looking, very period appropriate, but we will set them back 2 inches within either an 8-inch CME wall or a 6-inch frame wall, so it gives that depth and not a flat appearance. And then typical trim details. We did a quick rendering here to give you a better perspective of what it's going to look like. This is still not perfect, but it gives you a better idea of kind of what it looks like in perspective. Kind of give you, again, a quick overview of where it was. This is a similar 3-unit townhouse being built at 2204 North Central. Scale and massing are probably similar. I think it's an appropriate project. This is one here on 302 C7 that was recently approved. That's a 4-story product. 409 East Oak is a 3-story, a bigger project. It's about, I believe, 10 or 11 townhouses. And then we have the house next door directly to the east, which I think is very similar in scale and massing in its general form, about 10-foot first floor, 9-foot second floor. This actually has a 3rd floor within its gable. That gable is perpendicular to the road, where ours is parallel. So another similar project in scale. This is more of an accessory structure. The roofing material we're looking for is a shingle roof. Probably a more dimensional shingle than this. We're going to have smooth hardy board. Probably do some Soffits non-vented and hardy beadboard on the Soffits. On the front, we're going to have some around the porch foundations, some veneered brick to give some again some more character. The patio floor would be concrete, smooth, or a broom finish. These columns that would either be tongue and groove pine or painted. We can talk about that. Square with some trim and base details. Again, the large windows, kind of a 2/1 or 2/2. And then typical windows and doors. Garage door. Some sconces. A ceiling fan that maybe is in the back. Exterior hardware here, typical black finished hardware. And these are, again, some site plans of some other projects that have been recently approved here on Tampa Heights. And then I got a couple of other pictures of that project that's under construction, which is similar in scale. The difference is they don't have an alley; they have a motor court on the back, which you can see here. So they actually have between their units have a motor court in lieu of a courtyard that we have. In closing, I think we have a project that respects its location. In particular, it's a transition lot between commercial on Florida and single and multifamily residential on Ross Avenue. And scale, massing are very, very similar to other vernacular houses within the neighborhood, and within the street, and we look forward to looking for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. The staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. We did meet with the applicant prior to the public hearing and reviewed some of the changes that have been presented here to you tonight. The majority of the items that were in the staff report have been addressed. The applicant has taken some of the direction and on some of the items and worked with it, perhaps not in the way that we suggested, but in a way that I feel does satisfy the Tampa Heights Design Guidelines criteria. So we find the application consistent, and I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lund. We'll go ahead and open up the hearing to public comment. If there's anyone who would like to come forward and speak either for or against the project, please do so at this time. And if you have not been sworn in, please indicate and we will get you sworn in. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I have in fact been sworn in. My name is Scott Tankle. I live at 208 East Ross Avenue, which is the house almost directly north of the subject property. It's really northeast. It was in one of the photos that you showed just now. Tonight's hearing is about a certificate of appropriateness, and I'm just wondering if a 3-townhome use of the property is appropriate on Ross Avenue, where the vast majority of the homes are single-family residences. The ARC's role is to preserve the historic nature of our street and our community, and I don't feel that a townhome community or townhome project is going to fit that nature. My house was built in 1900. It's 122 years old. My neighbor's houses were similarly built, also in about 1900, 1905. You'll notice that the property to the east of the subject lot, that's a newer property, but that is a single-family home. So this is not impossible to build single-family homes on these lots and still do well and sell them and match the character of our street. I'd just like to remind everybody, this is from tampa.gov. This is the mission statement of ARC, and the second paragraph reads, "The Tampa Heights Historic District is comprised of mainly single-family dwellings." That's the very first sentence. So again, I just don't think that a community of 3 townhomes does any justice to our street, which, by the way, used to be where the trolley line ran. This is a very, very unique street. The subject property, that will be the very first impression of people driving on Ross Avenue from North Florida Avenue. So again, a 3-townhome community just does not do the lot justice. We know, based on the property right next door, that a single-family home can go there and sell and be the highest and best use of that property. So again, I think the design was okay, but I don't think the fact that the density is appropriate. Our homes have wide front porches, our homes have yards, our homes have backyards, our homes have yards on the sides of the property. This will basically take up the entire lot, but for an 8-foot front porch area. So thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We have,
Good evening, ARC council members. My name is Justin Rickey. I am a Tampa Heights resident, 103 East 26th Avenue, Tampa, Florida. I've been sworn in. So I don't know if this is the appropriate place to discuss this, but I did want to counter this gentleman's point that just came up and spoke. The primary, and I don't even know if this is a correct avenue, to be honest with you. I think we're just talking about form right now and architectural details and not primarily use. May I present that question to you? Is that more of a city council thing, or do I want to talk about this now?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the city attorney's office. So if you just want to provide your comment, you could just provide your comment.
Provide my comment. Okay. The bulk of our multifamily zoning, as you may all be well aware, is south of Columbus. We're right outside of downtown. I think that Mr. Ashkenazi, while we've had our differences in the past, has done a good job at maintaining the form of the neighborhood, weaving in the character and certain architectural design elements that make this fit into the neighborhood. I think he did a good job. We've definitely butted heads in the past, but I think this is one project we're like, you know what? We like this. You know, it fits into the fabric. I think this is a perfect place for townhomes. I think you're sitting right outside of downtown. And I think that, you know, Steve's gone out of his way to kind of make it fit in. So those are my comments, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any others that would like to come forward? I see another gentleman standing. And you've been sworn in, yes?
Yes, Jeffrey Marshall, 206 East Ross. I have been sworn. Good evening. And Mr. Ashkenazi has come out to the property. I live directly north, so the property right across the street and next door to Mr. Tanko, who's testified. Steve's a very nice guy. He presents a good package. I won't disagree that he's put together what he thinks is best for the Tampa Heights. In fact, I wish he'd build a single-family home right there, and he'd probably fit in just well. So he has that idea in mind. What I'm imploring you all to consider in relation to the design and really the appropriateness of the area is that all of the homes that are right there on East Ross between Florida Avenue and what is Morgan Street right at the end are perhaps what we consider to be like the pinnacle and the doorsteps to the Tampa Heights Historic District. You can kind of keep going further down Ross Avenue and it stays the same almost all the way down to the park. With an exception of that brick building that was built off of Morgan behind an older home before you all were involved or your predecessors were involved. And so we're restricted on what we can do to our homes. I can't build a transom on my front window or side lights on either side of my window or put a big glass door on my front window. That would be inappropriate for my house, maybe because it's a contributing property. He can get away with it because it's a new build and he's trying to add townhomes to our community. It's a transition between the city life and single-family homes. He's just moving that transition further into the property. And there might be places that are more appropriate for it. There's a pizza place in the neighborhood nestled back in there, and there's a brick building right next to that, and it's a home, and it's a multiple unit home. And so they built 3 units right next to that. That's not our neighborhood. And then our neighborhood has a variety within the streets, and if you start changing it now, and you change the nature of the rest of Ross Avenue, you've changed the heart of what Tampa Heights is. And that's what we talk about design appropriateness. This isn't an interior structure that I'm complaining about. It's not the actual design of it. I'm relatively new, 3 years living there now. But if you just take a look at Ross Avenue, the pictures they provide us, and look at the homes to the east, and you turn around and you look at Florida Avenue, and you see brick buildings and flat walls for miles, that's what we're building. We're building a 35-foot flat line along the top, 60-foot flat line along the front, and a flat line along that alleyway, and you're just destroying the look of these single-family homes with properties with rather yards. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else coming forward, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period of the hearing, and we will begin asking questions starting on my right. Commissioner Myers, if you have any questions for the owner or agent.
Actually, may I see the photograph of Ross Avenue looking toward the east? And that's.
I'm sorry, was there somebody else who wanted to speak? I'm so sorry, I did not see. We will reopen the public comment portion of the hearing. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
Please, sir.
I've been sworn in. My name's Michael Spokus. I live at 210 East Ross Avenue, just to the north of the property and 2 doors down. I am in favor of the project. There are a few architectural things that I would like to just bring up that you know, if you could consider, and these are just things that have been weighing on me. So one, it is proposed that it has an asphalt shingle roof. All the houses on the 200 block of Ross all have metal roofs, either stamped shingles or 5E crimp metal roofs. So I feel it might be a little out of line to have an asphalt shingle roof on that type of structure. The other thing is the front gables. The side gables and even the back gables and the gables on the accessory structures have board and batten designs, but the gables on the front of the structure just have horizontal siding going all the way up. I feel it might be more appropriate to have the board and batten design on the front gables as well. And that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else sitting in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one, we will go ahead and close the public comment period, and then we will go back to questions from the commissioners, starting with Mr. Myers.
If I may I see
So
the?
if the owner agent would come forward, please, to answer questions. Thank you.
May I see the photograph looking east? And someone familiar with the area, the sort of, I can't tell if it's yellow or green, the one with the second story porch? That is on the, what I'm going to say is the north side of the street? And that's a single, is that a single family dwelling?
So, if, we can't ask questions out in the audience like that, it has to be recorded.
Mhm.
It's a single-family home.
Thank you.
I would also like to caution our commission, we are not here to discuss zoning and use. This has already been through zoning, so it's established. And our purview is only in the architectural review portion of this project at this time. So. Go ahead.
Oh, well, actually wasn't going at zoning.
Okay.
But that also doesn't support the point that I was thinking about making, so that, am I to understand that all of the other houses on the block, or on the street, shall we say, are indeed single family? Is that correct?
Are you referring to the 200 block of Ross?
Yes.
I believe that is the case, but I do not know for certain if that's their current use. I know some of these have accessory structures. If you go one block away, there's 6 dwelling units on one lot. I think we called that out in our photo presentation on Ross. So I can't speak to the specific uses. I know a lot of houses have been grandfathered into accessory apartments, accessory garage units, so I can't say whether they're all, in fact, only single-family units.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Commissioner Taylor?
I have none right now.
If I may, I'd like to go over some of the details that have been presented here for today. First of all, if you could please pull up your relevant elevations, please.
Yep, I see it. Sorry, we're on.
Would you like to see the front elevation?
Yes, yeah, front and side.
Front and side.
Okay. Now, I remember from your presentation that you had mentioned that you had a brick veneer as part of your elevation on the front around the porch. And I see in this particular elevation just piers. In another elevation that we had seen really a foundation line around the front of the porch that was all done in brick veneer. So can you tell me what you're trying to accomplish here with the brick, your foundation, how it's finished, and how this may or may not wrap around the entire building?
Yeah, so it's mainly only at the porch, and the porch we're simulating what would have been traditionally a pier type design. Of course, this is a stem wall, but we would, and open to the commissioner's desires, If we feel, if this is not appropriate, we could make all of this brick, but it would stop at and I apologize, this should have wrapped 2 feet here, but all of this, should be brick. This was a last minute change we made, and then also the perspective shows it all brick, and again, it would stop only at the porch.
So then the remainder on your west elevation, your foundation, as well as in between your piers, what is that fit and finish material?
That's all a stucco.
Stucco and paint?
Painted stucco, yes, sir. From the skirt board to the grade. It's about 24 inches.
Can we visit some of your porch detailing, please?
Okay, sure. What would you like to know?
I'd like to take a look at or have an explanation for you on your columns, column details, bases, capitals.
Yeah, so the columns.
What is the detailing at the head of these capitals? What is your soffit finishing? What is your ceiling finishing?
Okay, so we'll start from kind of the bottom and up and work our way back. So we have an 8x8 wrapped column, the square column. There we got doubles and we have triples. Triples on the corners and triples here, and then doubles. So they, again, keep wrapping themselves as these pop out about 12 inches. And then there's a 1x8 base and a 1x4 cap on that. The ceiling of it would be all T&G, and that would be 1x6. Again, smooth hardy board on the face, and these have a little board and batten. We looked at several different options on how to address those gable ends. We kind of been back and forth. I think we're open to, the board's view of how that works. But in general, again, this could be brick, and it could be stucco. Kind of up to you guys. Anything to say?
Your ceilings for your porches, and I would assume that it would also occur on the backside. It's all tongue and groove.
Tongue and groove pine. Tongue and groove pine.
Pine, and its finish is going to be painted or stained.
It would be a stained tongue and groove pine.
Okay. Yeah, I was in follow up. You have a very, very strong presence for these board and batten gable ends. Particularly strongly on your east and west elevation side, but I think the mix here is on the front, the north elevation is off, and I could honestly see how the continuation of the board and batten on your front gables would be actually to an advantage. Bringing the whole three-dimensionality of this building block that you're putting together as a more consistent whole, because you're doing really well with the windows on this side. Now, let's talk about the windows on the west elevation and as well as on your east elevation. I notice of a particular size, if you will, second floor to the south end of this are much larger windows. Am I to assume that those are part and part of bedroom windows?
Yeah, so the west elevation here in particular, we actually had Elaine and I talked extensively about windows and window sizing. We've added or removed one size and tried to make them a little bit more consistent. These 4 windows are the same. These 3 windows are the same, and these are yes, all bedroom windows. These are in a kitchen area. These are in the bathroom area, and these are secondary windows either in a bedroom, because we have 3 really large windows here, or in a living area where this would be an entertainment wall, and we're trying to get enough light for it to work, but oversized windows just wouldn't feel appropriate.
I understand. It's a little bit disconcerting seeing the variation without having knowledge of its rhyme and reason, and there usually is, and that works out very well, I think. I noticed a little short step of roofs here over your porches, so I will not be misinterpreting those as balconies of any kind.
No, these are not balconies.
Mhm.
This is roof of the porch, and then gables on where we have additional bedrooms.
And one last item, you went over your windows, and you're leaving yourself open for a number of different manufacturers, but you're pretty darn strong on how you're planning on installing them, inset that nominal 2-inch, so you have that nice shadow line and backstop to the wall itself. Can we revisit again one more time what you're doing for your sill, head, and jamb trims on that?
Yep. So we'll start at this is the jamb,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a door jamb. This is I'll take that back. That's the head, I'm sorry. That's the head, this is the jamb. This is a jamb between two windows. And then this is the sill, but I apologize. At the last minute, Elaine and I discussed removing this trim off the bottom of the sill and party directly to the bottom of the sill.
So we're dealing with basically a 2-by-block detailing around your windows.
Correct.
Okay, with that, again, the deep shadow line.
Yes.
Same thing as you're doing for your porch. It's all done in 2-by-block or board once we get into the header beam.
Correct.
This is all I have currently for question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Boyd?
Do you have references for setbacks for the adjacent properties or the other properties on Ross?
So we only have, we got the site plan. We only have one adjacent property to the east, which is the large Victorian style house, and then of course to the west we have an empty lot. Here's approximately the location of their accessory structure and their primary structure, this being their front porch. They're within a foot or so of where we are. We are actually at 26 feet to the primary structure, and then we have an 8-foot porch because we have some overhangs above on the second floor that would preclude that to be the 25-foot setback, which is per the RM24 zoning is what we're not asking for any averaging or any because we don't really have any other houses other than the one directly to the east. So we've met the required zoning setbacks on all sides. On both sides 7 and 10 on the rear for the accessory structure.
Do you have references for the heights of the adjacent properties?
Yeah, so this adjacent property, again, here, again, it's very tall. There are no drawings. I wouldn't know how
40 on their plans.
Okay, yeah, it's.
For the one peak?
The peak, you said 40 feet, correct?
Yeah, top of the peak. Ours is about 34. It's a 2-story structure. I mean, I think it's extremely appropriate. We're not proposing anything that would be out of character in the scale and massing based on what the zoning requires. The zoning, again, is RM24, which is a little weird. I think this is actually going to be amended at some point in the future, but every other zoning, single family and or multifamily, is 35 feet. In RM24, it starts at 30 feet, and then every foot above 30 feet, you kind of come in at a 45-degree angle. And that's why we're clipping those corners. And also I think it's a good architectural element.
Do you have any scoring or paving that you'll be incorporating?
So the alley is going to be improved. At least this is currently improved, and then we'll improve it to the property line. We will more than likely have some scoring in here, of course, for the concrete curb, and then up front we'd have some scoring just at the 3 entrances. Everything else is really just part of the structure.
How will you be screening your mechanical equipment?
Yeah, for some reason, the floor plan has it, but the site plan didn't, and I apologize for that. But we're going to put some landscape screening, of course, on 2 sides all the way around, so none of air handlers would be seen from the road.
Also a privacy fence.
Right, and then more than likely, there would be a fence on both sides, but we just haven't decided what size and scale of that fence currently.
Can you clarify the width of the trim around your windows?
Yeah, that's a 4-inch trim around the windows, and then between the windows would be a 6-inch trim if it's a double window.
Okay. Do you have any reference within this district to the board and batten material you're proposing?
So we have done board and batten previously on other projects. They are not under construction yet, and this has been approved. There is precedent in many locations throughout the country, but is there specifically in Tampa Heights a house that is currently in that I can think of in the district? I can't think of one currently.
There's a note on the staff report to incorporate fenestration into the accessory structure.
Yeah, Elaine and I discussed that in pretty good detail also. Again, the part that would be seen, we've added 2 gables to the rear. The two side elevations have gables. This is just facing an internal courtyard. It's only about 12 feet wide. I just didn't feel it was inappropriate to add more gables in here or some other things. Open to discussion. Again, this is kind of facing commercial, so we're trying to have a little security in these. Didn't want to introduce additional windows just for that reason specifically, because this would be exposed directly to what is Palm Avenue.
Can we see your front elevation?
Sure.
Would it even be possible to see like the front elevation with a portion of the floor plan that shows the front porches?
Uh-huh. Here's the front elevation. Here's the front porch.
So I think one of there was a reference project that you showed, and I think one of the components that made it successful was the fenestration of even the front porches and the front doors, like the front entry space for a resident. And the fenestration on your second floor in this elevation looks like it's been well thought out and appreciated. I think the fenestration on the first floor is reading really flat. So you have changes in roof heights, but they're all at the same 8-foot porch with the 26-foot setback. And I think that's sort of what reads different from that reference project and reads a little bit bulky in this elevation. And then same reference, I think, for the mass of your roof line, that one long run of asphalt shingles at the 34-foot height is reading really dense.
So I could address the first point. I actually thought the same thing once I saw the rendering. It's not shown here, but there's going to be some movement in these foyers where these foyers are going to be set back and the office is going to come out, so that we'll be able to create about a 2-foot additional fenestration for each of these foyer areas. So, and then we're going to have some privacy screens between each of these units, but it won't be seen as actually a flat wall as it's shown on this floor plan. These will be pushed into each of these units, and that was accomplished actually when we, as Ralph alluded to, that we had this first floor go back to 26 feet. So it gives us some additional room, that we have about 2 feet of room to have some movement on that front wall, so that it's not just seen as a flat 60-foot wall section.
I think that'd be helpful even like for neighbors, like walking in and not being right
For sure.
next to.
Yeah, and then again, also these pop out and have additional fenestration. I've done a couple of duplexes here in the neighborhood and with continuous, and it actually I think feels quite nice. I understand. I don't know if it's actually splitting this into 3 distinct porches, I think, would be as successful. That's why we've tried to do so many other things on this elevation to try and bring it to feel like a cohesive single building versus three distinct townhouses, which we saw other projects referenced further south, where that was definitely a rhythm that they were going for, which was this, you know, townhouse, townhouse, townhouse. Here, we're trying to give it a single mass form that breaks down the scale, but reads as a single building.
Yeah, I think, personally, I think when, you know, talking to some of the neighborhoods and trying to understand, you know, I didn't get the feel of the neighborly interaction and with a patio such as these. I think with having a continuous porch, you know, at least I know myself, I have my neighbor, I live in a townhome in Tampa Heights, and I have my neighbor over for cooking out, and I think having these all connected, now adding that fenestration that we talked about will help with a little bit of privacy, but I do think that having this one porch as a cohesive unit, it does give it that feel of a nice single-family home concept, and yet it does provide each of them their own space that they could utilize for their private enjoyment. And this, you know, leaves a lot of wasted front area for them to, you know, the areas that's not shown here is basically the area you'd be able to put your front chairs and a little chair to hang, or a little table to hang out, and that's weight lost on this. So I think with having a continuous 8-foot by 23-foot porch on the front that they each can utilize, it provides a lot more various options for each of the future homeowners.
I don't have any additional questions.
So I want to start with a question to Ms. Lund. In the notes, there is a notation to reconsider the use of 4-inch trim under the windowsills, and I did hear the owner agent say earlier that they were going to remove the trim below the windows. Is that the intent of that comment?
Correct, that is.
Okay. So for the architect and or the owner, if we could look at the site plan. I just want to zoom into the garage alley portion there. I can't read that dimension, the setback from the property line to the face of the garage.
10 feet.
That's 10 feet?
10 feet, yes.
Okay. Then can we talk about your garage doors? Do you have a manufacturer image that represents what you intend to install?
We say it's a clopay steel garage door with some vertical trim that would simulate wood.
Okay. Back to the discussion of fenestration. And fenestration is openings and walls, so that would be doors, windows, not setbacks and recesses. So I understand that there's a commercial property next to this property. However, more often than not, whoever moves into these properties may or may not want fenestration themselves. So with market consideration, which I would think you've done your due diligence, the thought for any type of light into the garage space for personal use is something that is always considered historically and in our times. So I would strongly question whether or not those garage doors and or the man door should have some type of light feature, and or if there's some kind of light amenity that you can push to the private side of the courtyard. And then there's a relationship between the primary structure and the secondary structure for that homeowner, right?
Yeah, Steve and I just briefly discussed that. Yeah, we can make these full light glass doors. I think that'll help. I 100% agree. You know, I have a garage that only has limited light in it, and well, at least there's some versus none, and we could, you know, definitely do that. Again, we're just trying to respect its location, and maybe we could put a couple of small windows in the back facing the courtyard too.
Okay. Regarding the discussion of the front porch, and I understand that aesthetics can be a tricky thing, but historically, when we look at multifamily, and the question of precedent, when we are asking for precedent, we're not asking for the most recent things that have been built in the district, and I think you know that, Mr. Schuler. So when we're talking about historic precedents, there are some styles that give substance to the idea of this monolithic sort of presence. However, the styles that you are invoking, and you have probably 2 or 3 that are mixing into this project, none of those really give rise to this idea of a monolithic sort of presence on the street. And I'm questioning whether or not you're open to reconsidering some of that modulation in the mass and the form. I do agree with my fellow Commissioner Boyd, that the upper story seems to be a little bit more successful, and I understand that there are some things in the floor plan that didn't quite make it to this round of drawings. But I do think that as you revise your drawings, to think about the relationship between the second and the first floor, and if you'd be open to that.
Of course.
Okay.
What is she
All
gonna
right.
say?
I have
She
no
wants to
other specific
bring this
questions
down
for
and
this
what you
project.
just described, you know,
Any
bring
other
this
commissioners with
back and forth
questions
on the
for
first.
the
I have a
owner or
quick
the
one.
agent?
You
Yes.
described it.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
I believe the rear elevation shows sliding doors and the plans show, hinge doors for your rear
No,
porches.
they are all, so they're double set French doors, so this is a fixed light and then operable and fixed light.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then, and commissioners will discuss the case.
Kamaria Pettis Malcolm from the
Yes.
city attorney, we're not closing the public hearing yet?
I'm sorry. Sorry, you do
Yes,
have
rebuttal.
5 minutes for rebuttal.
Sure. No, I appreciate your time. We've taken time to meet with the neighborhood. As a Tampa Heights, both of us are Tampa Heights residents. We certainly have sensitivities over the design aesthetics. We do want to point out a couple land use objectives and policies that we think are important to notate. Land use objective 9.1 encourages to locate higher density housing and or near the downtown core. This is certainly that, being less than a mile to the downtown Tampa area. Land use policy 9.1.2 encourages the site plan in these urban neighborhoods and encourages this type of design near the periphery of the neighborhoods. So I think we have pointed out a lot of projects, both immediately in the area that we've been sensitive in terms of the massing, the scale, the height of the building. We try to understand that this is an RM24 lot. It actually would allow for up to 5 dwelling units by right. That was not the intent, to try to cram as many housing units onto this property as possible. We wanted to put a sensitive, and the design was supposed to be very thoughtful in trying to create a unique prospect at the periphery of the neighborhood that it's a bridge that welcomes people to that Tampa Heights core. So, I think it was something that, we've gone through a lot of back and forth. We continue to tweak it, and we're open to all these design tweaks that will make this a building that hopefully will become historic itself. So, I think, I don't know if Ralph has anything else to add, but.
Yeah, so in continuing with that, and I actually live on Ross Avenue also. I live about a block and a half down, and lived there for 25 years. So know the neighborhood extremely well. And I think Tampa Heights has been challenged in that other neighborhoods don't have the zoning and the density allowed here, and we've been fighting that for some time. This is not a new discussion. I think south of Palm Avenue is going to be a 3- and 4-story townhouse development entirely, probably even denser than that. But Palm Avenue to Columbus is going to be exactly this, a splattering of sensitive townhouse projects, 1 and 2, 2-story, never a 3-story, always maybe a duplex or a triplex. I think this particular lot in particular fulfills all of those goals. As Mr. Eskenazi said previously, that it's a transition lot. It's a lot that could easily have been 5 units. Would never ever taken the job or this project if that had happened. I think it's the perfect fit for a perfect site. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing then, and commissioners will discuss the case. Anything that anyone would like to bring up?
I think that very frequently we see townhouse developments that get really, really busy. And I believe that this one very successfully walks the line between a triplex and a single building. And that I think is really commendable. It tries very hard to fit in with the other single-family residences on the block. It seems that there are already single-family residences that have very similar massing. And then again, I want to remind you all that our charge is not to look at just the block, but the entire district. So I find it to be appropriate.
One thing I'd like to add is kind of going back on piggybacking your comments. The first and second floor do feel like they're fighting each other a little bit, but I think some subtle changes with the first floor would probably alleviate that fight. And I think one of them that I'm seeing is you're trying to make it look like a single family home, but yet give it 3 differing facades. And you've done that very well on the second floor. The additional gables for those entries, to me, just seems a little busy. To me, it feels to be taking away from the 1 unit mass. I'm not a designer, so that's just my ideal, but it just seems like some subtle changes there could potentially end up with a very successful project in the end.
Did it talk about, this being somewhat of an early plan, so there's
Right.
still some motion going in between that portion, which is the entry wall, that versus what's happening with the living room wall, in, out, back and forth, and I think part of the discussion on that is, do we need to see that if they're going in that direction, or how they're going to coordinate with staff on that matter? Because that's the kind of work that needs to happen there, to help with this differentiation.
Well, I'm also interested in how that might affect the look of the roof line at the ground porch front entry areas, because the biggest conflict to me is the reading of the second floor. There's more of an attempt at the second level to differentiate the units, whereas the ground is trying to make it a one unified thing. And the way that they were talking about the first floor plan and the changes they had intended to make that were not reflected yet, they appear to be more aligned with the thought and the way that the project was being represented on the second story. So for me, I'd want to see how those moves at the first floor that they intend to make relate to that porch configuration, and more specifically the roof lines. Does it, by what I heard today, I would think that would have some significant implications for the roof line of the porches.
There's a number of different things that can get massaged here. I can see how there would be a greater articulation of that building face in, out,
right,
with respect, and then we have a more uniform porch face, if you will, tying the whole thing together.
Right.
there's a number of different things that can
Right,
happen.
so for me.
But we're not seeing it here on these documents
Right.
this morning. We're seeing it.
And we often have this discussion, how much can staff take on and we feel comfortable with. I certainly trust our staff. I think our staff does a phenomenal job when we do send things back to them and say coordinate with. But the other thing that concerns me about this project is it does seem to be borrowing from 2 or 3 different styles. I really don't get the board and batten. For me personally, I just don't get it. There's a Dutch hip roof line at the 2 side elevations that I actually like as a move, and I think that whole Dutch hip thing is probably something that should be investigated a little bit further in terms of the main roof lines for me. I think the gable and the Dutch hip are struggling to marry, and the board and batten is just not doing anything to engage that relationship very successfully. And I think that's where precedent, when we have the question of precedent, that's what we're asking for. How do you learn from history to go about, creating new designs for today? They give you lessons on how to put things together. It's not mimicking, it's just understanding how they come together.
I think having a historical reference, especially when it's something unusual, like the board and batten in a district, is important. I also think we could move more confidently in the direction of approving this if we had references for the street. Like, from our images, I believe that the houses are larger scale than something we'd see in the 1900s Hyde Park district. And this three residence structure is not as out of place as it would be in a different district. But I don't have the confidence because I have no reference other than some street pictures, like knowing that our setbacks are consistent, our building heights are consistent, our roof lines are
I agree with that.
not overwhelming.
We have individuals, we have projects that come before us, and they really do a great job of sort of highlighting where that particular district sits in history and the mix. And we know that every single one of them has some mixing of multifamily with single story or single residential. But understanding it from that context is difficult for us. We can't hold that in our individual memories. So I agree there's a struggle there to understand, is this truly a concern in terms of the massing? We can't do anything about zoning, that's a given. But just understanding it from the relationship of massing, the setbacks, all of those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, without having that reference, it's like she said, it's tough. Because this particular project, we're covering pretty much the entire piece of property, other than the courtyard and maybe, I don't remember seeing the setbacks on the sides, but it looked to be more like a 5 to 7 foot setback. Whereas when you see the picture going down the street, the pictures look to reflect more greenery, more landscaping, larger setbacks. Even though the massing is there, maybe the lots are bigger, I don't know.
That's the difficulty. We can't make any, so I don't know how to move forward with this, but
But I do think I want to make the point that we're not asking for this because we've seen it before. We're asking for it because it gives us context of whether this new structure belongs adjacent to the existing structures that have been there for over 100 years.
that's correct. That is correct.
And not just on the street, not on this individual block, but in terms of the district. And I would also like to say that the board and batten is not making it for me. We see it occasionally in the bungalows, and a lot of times there's stucco in between it's almost like a half timber thing, but not on this.
Well, I think it's very, there's a staff comment that says provide reference from within the district, the historic district, for the board and batten material.
Mm-hmm.
We either need a reference or we need to reconsider the material.
I agree. Anyone ready to make a motion? Feel comfortable making it?
I am comfortable in having this looked at by staff, and that we would set some conditions.
We have to be very, very clear, very specific about what we are asking them to do.
Or we can ask them to bring it again.
Correct.
Well, we cannot ask them that. We can only vote up or down.
Right, well, yeah,
That's up to them.
Well, obviously.
yeah.
Anyone? Anything? Do we need to talk about it more? A reminder, I cannot make a motion.
Mhm.
Commissioners, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. I think might be a conversation that staff can have with the applicants if a continuation were granted. So we may want to ask them if they're open to a continuation. If so, the date we'd be looking at is April the 6th at that public hearing on that Wednesday night.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. So if the applicant and the owner could just state they would like to ask for a continuance, that's what needs to happen. If that's what you're asking for a continuance, you need to state that.
Sure. Stephen Ashkenazi, I'm the owner of the property, and we are open to a continuance to work with staff to make sure that the plan that's being hopefully approved incorporates all these design changes, and we'll make sure that we, seems like we'll eliminate the board and batten detail, and I know you can't ask for that, but we'll make sure that we have a plan that's got more consistent materials and have a little bit better fenestration on that first floor. As well, we'll come back with a little better details on both of the historic district with similar, showing more buildings with the massing, so you can understand that this building is certainly in scale with a lot of other similar projects. So with that, we are open to getting a continuance.
Okay.
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-75 for the property located at 1909 North Florida Avenue to the public hearing at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 6, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor, please state aye and raise your hand and repeat so.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who seconded the motion?
I did,
Okay, thank you.
the quiet one.
Continue to April 6th.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The next item on our agenda this evening is case ARC 22-25 at 507 East Hugh Street in the Tampa Heights Historic District. This agenda item and the one following which is also for 507 East Hugh Street. I'll be doing one photo presentation for both, and I would like to note before we jump into 2225 here that it is a request for demolition of a contributing structure. And whether or not we proceed with 22-138 this evening will of course be contingent upon whether or not that is approved at this hearing. So with that, I will move into the photo presentation here. So first we have the 1920 Sanborn Map of this portion of the Tampa Heights Historic District showing the subject property in green. You can see that there's the house that is on the property was there at the time. This house was built circa 1924. This is showing the location of the subject property within the Tampa Heights Historic District. The local historic district boundaries are shown on this map in red, and the national historic district boundaries are shown in blue. And this is the present-day aerial of the site. You can see that the street sort of intersects with the off-ramp of I-275 at the Florabraska Avenue exit. This is the front of the building. We're looking at its north elevation here. This is the north and the west side of the structure. And then this is the east side of the structure. You can see it's currently being supported, being shored up in place right now. This is the rear of the property. You can see in the upper gable that there's been some failure of the structure. Let's see a closer photo of that gable end. This is one of the adjacent properties here at 505 East Hughes Street. This is the other adjacent property at 509 East Hughes Street. This is looking east toward the interstate and the exit ramp. This is looking west along Hughes Street. So the subject site would be to your left. And that concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I'll have the applicant come forward and go through the demolition criteria for contributing structure in the historic district as outlined in section 27116F, items 1 and 3 of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Actually, I'm not seeing anybody come forward for this application.
Is there no one here for this project?
507 East Hughes Street.
I'm just here to represent the neighborhood, but not to represent people for the application, so.
Madam Chair, my recommendation is to realign the agenda, place these the next two cases at the end of the agenda, and see if there's an agent who will show up for the case.
Okay, well, do you need any kind of motion from us?
Yes.
Can I have a motion, please, to move these two cases to the end of the agenda for tonight's hearing? This is easy.
I move to move the case ARC 22-138 and 22-25 for the property at 507 East Hughes Street to the end of today's agenda.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes. We will move those cases to the end of today's hearing and move to the next case. Ms. Lund.
Thank you, Commissioners. Case number ARC 22-107 at 404 East Ross Avenue. This application is for new construction of an accessory structure in the Tampa Heights Historic District and for site improvements as well. The primary structure on the property is a contributing building in the historic district built circa 1905. Moving to the photo presentation, we can see where this property is located on the north side of Ross Avenue, it's in between Jefferson Street and Central Avenue. This is the location map of this, showing the subject site's location within the Tampa Heights Historic District. And this is the present-day aerial of the site. You can see the primary structure situated a bit to the sort of southwest of the property, and that there's a large backyard available for the new construction of the accessory structure. This is looking at the front of the existing home. This is looking at the front and the west side of the property. So we're looking at the south and west elevations here. And then we have the east elevation. This is the rear of the subject property. And this is the property located directly to the, so that's 406 East Ross Avenue, so it would be just to the east. And this is the subject site, I'm sorry, the property just to the west of the subject site. Here we are looking towards Central Avenue, so we're looking east. And now looking west toward Jefferson Street. And then looking across the street at the house that's directly to the south across the street from the subject site. And with that, I'll have the applicant come forward and present their request. Thank you.
You get me for the rest of the night? Ralph Struhler, DV Architect, 2401 North Howard Avenue. I have been sworn. Yep. So, 404 East Ross, about 2 blocks down from the previous project. Existing single-family, 2-story frame house was actually moved here in the mid-90s. It used to be on Palm Avenue. So it was designated a contributing structure after its relocation. It's on a very large lot. It's 84 by 140, 1 deep. This is the primary structure as it sits now with a front porch. Currently on the rear, there is just a flat wall and an existing pool. That pool, we don't plan on doing anything currently, but it is in close proximity to the house, maybe more than it should have been, but the owners bought the property as is. What we're proposing to do is add a back porch here, 6 feet in depth, again, mainly because of the location of the existing pool, connected to a breezeway, a large patio for, mainly because this porch is not going to be big enough to do a lot of entertaining on. This would be a patio really for the pool, a 2-car garage, accessed from improved alley that runs east-west, north is to the left. Currently, the site only has a small curb cut here and no actual driveway. We're going to propose to bring in a new drive and 2 new 2-car garage. There'll be a 2nd-story accessory structure with a 1-bedroom apartment above, and then a pool bath here at the end of the 1st floor. Just for quick idea of just, this is what the configuration would be. Again, this is RM24 zoning, would allow up to 6 dwelling units here. We're going to have just a single accessory structure with a 1-bedroom apartment. Elevation-wise, I'll show you probably the most prominent elevation, and let me zoom out for you, is the east elevation and then the south elevation. So the east elevation, this is the existing house as it stands. There is some fish scale here. Most of this house is hip with just a couple of little gables our front porch. We're proposing, they just had to have the roof replaced. It's a 5E crimp metal roof. We'd replace it with a new structure with 5E crimp metal roof. This is a 3-inch exposure, double wood siding. Very difficult to get a hold of, very expensive. We're proposing. Well, I was trying to just do one at a time, but that's okay. And then, so we're proposing a smooth hardy board, a 5 to 6 inch exposure, but then mimic all the other details as much as possible in the way of the windows and doors and gables. There is some inconsistency, which is charming. On the main house, it has some mainly 1/1 windows, and there are some other smaller windows that are different. But that occurs only a few times. The front porch has round spindle columns. We have both the transition breezeway and the covered porch that faces south, all with the same columns, so it have same detail. This is the west, which faces the pool area, and then the south, which again, if the house was over here to the left, this would be the elevation that you would see, but significantly back from the main structure beyond. The rear looks like this. So the first floor of the main house is fairly tall. It's 10 feet. Has a little bit taller than 8 feet headers here. So we're trying to get up above those, but yet encapsulate it within our new rear porch. This rear porch, again, would be 3 or 4 inches below the main level of the house. It would be a pier and lintel system that would match the main structure. And then we would transition down to a more on-grade accessory structure. And you can kind of see that as it transitions here. It's a little tricky, but I think it works pretty well. You kind of see it best here. We come out, there's a hip roof on this, but then a little baby gable or transition here that gets you back over to a hip that gets you into that edge of that gable, which then dies into this shed roof on the first floor and gets you all that to work together and not feel foreign. Just to quickly recap, just so you'll remember, that's how all this works. So there's some internal steps here behind this behind this pier, which does this same on both sides. Currently, there's that dash is what's there now, which is 3 steps of brick that get you down directly off a double French door, which is it's not friendly. Typical wall section says, again, first floor would be block because it is going to be garage, and then 9'4" to the first floor and a 9-foot second floor. Same pitch as the roof has on the main structure, 12.6. We are technically not an accessory structure. We actually meet primary structure setbacks, and we are taller than 22.5 feet. So you're currently 27 feet tall, which is still smaller and not as tall as the main structure. It's supposed to be subordinate in its scale, but for zoning, it's actually a second main structure. This is an old picture off Google, but it's hard to see. Ed has trimmed up his plants much better now, so we can actually see the house. But again, we don't really have a second floor balcony But as much as possible, we're gonna mimic all of these same details off of the main structure. The only difference would be mainly the siding. That 3-inch exposure siding is very difficult to get a hold of. That kind of a, we would have a light on the back of this one. That's a clopay carriage style, 2-car garage off the rear of the alley. Windows would look like this. These are vinyl windows. These, I believe, are Sierra Pacific. We've used these many times. They work real well. Same kind of detailing as previously. We would do a 6-inch wall with recessed modern windows, but still give the appearance and shape and form. You know, bigger corner boards, 5 1/4-inch corner boards, and then this house does have 3.5-inch around the windows. We'd match and all of that. Just to quickly review the staff's finding, I think we did meet with Elaine last week too on this project. We did add some mechanical screening with landscaping. We do have proposing some new fencing in concept, but I'd like to take that to staff to be approved. We haven't, you know, it's either going to be vinyl on the side and or a simulated wrought iron in the front, but I'd like to get that approved through staff. We did add a window on the rear just to give a little more fenestration. The west, I'm not sure if we added a window on the west. I have to remember. Yeah, we did not. That elevation is, apologize for the elevation. I'm just got a lot going on. I got a closet. I got a tub, and I got a bedroom that has two large windows in it already. Just, I know it seems a little thin, but I think it's appropriate. And that is not an existing rear porch on the primary structure. It says that is a new porch on the primary structure. That's part of it. And then pretty much everything else will mimic, again, other than the hardy board siding, would mimic the existing house. With that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. We'll go through staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines, and I believe the agent did a good job of reviewing the conditions that were listed in the staff report. I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open it to public comment. If anyone would like to come forward, please do, and let us know if you haven't been sworn in. Please remember to state your name, your address, and your relationship to the project.
Hi, my name is Brett Cody. I've been sworn in. I'm the property owner at 2103 and 2105 North Jefferson. So in theory, I'm probably the one most impacted by Ed and Beverly's accessory structure, which I recommend approval on. I think it would be a great addition. My backyard to what I built was a 2-unit attached townhomes, which Ralph also did. They turned out great. My backyard overlooks their backyard, and I think this will be a great addition. I have no problems with it whatsoever. I think the detailing is consistent with the fenestration in the neighborhood. It's consistent with my home, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward? So no one else, will go ahead and close that portion, and you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Schuler. I am so sorry. We're gonna ask questions at this time. Anyone have a question for Mr. Schuler regarding this project?
If you don't mind, I'd like to start a very simple site plan issue. What are you doing with fences and gates with this basically brand-new backyard?
Yep. So I'll quickly review, just, currently, this fencing is all existing. It's a new PVC fence. Part of it is actually my fence, part of it is Brett's fence, part of it is Ed's fence. And then this fence is gonna be proposed, a new vinyl fence that would match this existing fence, which is fairly new, a couple years old. This, in the front, it'd be a black aluminum picket fence, similar to what, everyone has seen, simulated wrought iron, can't afford wrought iron. And then we'd probably have some hedges in front of that eventually. But there's a gate here, a gate here, and a gate here, which would give you access to the dwelling unit upstairs.
Thank you.
Excuse me, does the dwelling unit, I understand it's not an accessory unit, it's actually a second principal construction, but it doesn't seem to have any parking. It doesn't have its own dedicated parking space. Is that required?
So we're gonna have approximately 5 parking spaces. You'll have 2 in this new ribbon here, that is on an existing curb cut. I have 2 in here. Then I technically could probably get 2 more behind here. I got 20 feet setback here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another space just adjacent to it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces.
But the one that is closest to the door to the accessory isn't paved. But you're right, you've got them. You're covered. All right, thank you.
But not shown. Because if you're intending to put if you will, a third open parking space to the north where we show your demolished palm trees, that's not indicated on your
Yeah,
plan.
I apologize. This line should have moved over to it would probably align with the edge of the accessory structure or primary structure. These 2 trees are small; they would be retained.
What is the requirement for RM24 in this case, this scenario?
In this case, we would need 4 spaces.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
The ribbons in the front are new as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're currently parking there, and so they're sand and gravel. Currently, we'd upgrade them to this existing apron is there. It just doesn't go into anything currently. I don't think I have a photo of that, but.
So you'll have scoring likely in both the ribbons and the rear driveway?
Absolutely. We can work with staff to get a proper amount of scoring.
Are there any handrails or railings on any of this porch?
No. So this is basically on grade. A little bit up from the pool, probably one step between here and there. And then on the second floor, we don't have any proposed balconies.
Okay.
This would be below 30 inches and wouldn't be required. And the front of the house doesn't have it, so I don't think it would be appropriate to have the back of the house to have it.
Can you clarify the roof materials for both structures?
Yeah, they're both 5V crimp metal roof. This is an old picture that I showed that shows a asphalt shingle. The roof had been recently replaced with a 5V crimp metal roof, and we're going to propose the same for the new structure.
And the existing structure has a 3-inch exposure siding. What are you proposing for the new structure?
It would be smooth hardy board siding. a 5 to 6 inch exposure.
And how do your new vinyl Sierra Pacific windows, in what way are they similar to the primary structure? Are the dimensions the same and the
Yes.
exposures the same?
Yeah, so typical modern windows, of course, are installed on a nailing flange. Maybe they're opposite side the other way. These have the same thickness and profile of the wood windows, about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, and they're double hung. That they are fully removable, and we would add trim to all this, and of course inset it to complete the look.
Additional questions? Did you show us hardware and lighting for this project? I can't remember.
I did not. We're gonna mimic what's existing. The hardware is existing I believe, is an antique brass. And then the lighting, I have very little lighting in here. It'd probably just be cans at most, maybe something like a carriage house on the rear. We would ask, we could get that approved through staff.
Are you going to have fans on these ceilings?
Good question. I don't think I've asked my client that.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Can you
Anybody
pull the
else?
elevation of the, like, breezeway?
Mm-hmm, yep. So there's that one and these here. So that one was east, one was west. and
Can
one
we
is-
zoom out, please?
Oh, sorry, yep.
It's okay.
So in your elevation number 2, you're showing 2 columns that are built up on brick piers, maybe?
Yeah, those are, it would be probably concrete but wrapped with brick, so they would be, appear to be, be brick.
Are they the portion that are coming down from the raised porch deck?
Yeah, so I think what I'm trying to do here, now I remember as far as, so this elevation in relationship to this elevation here, so this is of course a beam. So I think I was trying to do is take this beam wrap. This would probably all be concrete.
Can you push your
Yeah, I'm
lower
sorry,
elevation
yeah,
up?
yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate, sorry about that. So we'd wrap, this would be a poured column or a masonry base. We'd have the same profile, which is of the beam, wrap that as a trim piece, and then at the same elevation that the brick pier is, wrap that. So that's what that's trying to show. Brick pier, the wrapping of the what is the beam, and then the column itself above, and then the rest of the architecture.
Where are those on the plan?
Mm-hmm. That's essentially, cutting this way or cutting this way, but where you walk out of the double French doors, hang a right, go down these steps, and so these 2 columns only would have that detail. These 4 columns would be, of course, engaged in the porch, and then these 4 columns would be on grade.
Have you looked at just using longer columns that would match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to, whatever we think is, I'm trying to keep a datum line now that if consistent. I'm not sure longer columns,
And I'm not either. I'm just, I'm trying to figure out that the pier just looks foreign,
Okay.
to me. And/or stepping that roof. Have you thought about somehow stepping the roof?
I just don't have any room. It's just, if it was another 10 feet to the east, maybe. It's just, it's tight. And so we've on purpose, and you can see, made this so it at least dives into the top of that shed roof, and doesn't, you know, it feels like it has a home, in my opinion.
Can you show us the rear elevation again?
Uh-huh. That's the rear.
Because you're still contending with the head heights from the windows beyond.
Yeah, so we brought this down as low as I could get it. It makes sense.
And that leads me to my next question of, would it potentially help go in the other direction? I realize you're creating a larger difference there, but you do have that head height that you're already contending with. So is there a way to raise that porch floor, but then somehow tie it in? Does it make it easy?
You're asking me the porch floor of the accessory structure?
Well, just if you raise the porch roof line of the existing house, because you're already contending with the head height of the existing windows,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm probably compounding the problem here. I'm trying to talk this through.
Sure.
And then or is there any way to raise the porch roof of the accessory structure without getting into, and I don't remember what that facade, that elevation shows.
There's some windows there.
We got some windows there,
Yeah.
so that's gonna be a bit of a challenge, but, trust me, I've looked at,
I know.
I've looked at all the scenarios
I
possible.
know.
I think raising the back porch at the primary contributing structure, you're starting to get into the flashing issues.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to hit a sweet spot here, and I understand it may not be, quote, perfect, but I think what I hear is that maybe we should investigate those two columns that are kind of a transition, and is that the best solution there? I mean, I'm open to anything we think works, and I think other than that, you know, we could maybe raise the garage up a few inches. You know, I don't know if it's going to help that much, but I mean, I'm not going to raise it 2 feet, obviously, but I could raise it some.
Where is the steps in relation to those two columns? The internal steps?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
So these are the 4 columns that make up the porch, and those are inset on both sides here, and then you basically get to grade the second you step off where the end of that house is, and then, so these 2 columns are those columns that I think, you know, we're having struggles with, and then these 4 columns would be on.
Could you move the steps to that location potentially, which would then?
Yeah, I mean, I hear.
Again, I think we're all kicking around ideas here, so.
I think that has merit. I think we could investigate this, and so this transition here between this column and that column is probably just enough to get those 3 steps in. I'd have to check the math, but looks pretty close.
Now architects, y'all can talk.
If I may, I'd like to interject a little bit of heresy here. There is an awful lot happening back in this area.
Right.
A lot of different roof volumes, a lot of different spring lines, a lot of different heights. Have you examined the possibility of tying all of that together instead of dealing with pitched roof and go with a flat roof system?
So we do have a little bit of precedent on this house, only in, you know, again, not a great picture, but this here, the second floor porch here is a flat roof, low sloped roof. So
Reasonably so.
right.
You know, I'm thinking that you might end up having a more satisfactory and, if you will, cleaner beginning and termination for all of this roofing and their beams and their columns, if there was more of a consistent strike line brought to you by a flat or a flatter roof system.
Are you thinking only this connection piece?
All of it,
All of it, including this porch and this porch?
yes.
Okay.
It might be a cleaner way to marry the contributing structure with the new secondary. It's just something to think about.
Right.
I think there's some good suggestions being, and it sounds like you're amenable to looking at a couple of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything. My first inclination is one or the other. My first feeling is that this all could probably work as a single, and then tie that flat roof into this sloped roof more handsomely. You know, maybe it's a little taller or whatever, or slower pitch or whatever, but they try and get match up the datum line as much as possible. Would be my first inclination.
But there's a number of things that can be looked at. Now, I do want to proceed with one more thing. It's also a roof element as well, too. You made a very present discussion very early on about the nature of an accessory structure being a diminutive part of the assembly on the site. And one of the things that struck me as being not totally, but largely out of place is that when you take a look at particularly the rear elevation, side elevation as well as the whole assembly, but particularly the rear elevation, the original house has this wonderful assemblage of hip roofs. And you have a gable roof on the on this element here, and that, if you will, to a certain degree, to me, reinforces the block, tall nature of the accessory structure. Have you considered the use of a gable, not a gable, but a hip roof on this structure to reinforce your concept of diminutive?
Yeah, so I had some discussions with the owner, who is here, by the way, and his long-term goal is to put some solar panels on this roof, frankly. So, and have a charging station in the back for his car. So that played into that thought process to some degree to get more area of the roof.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead, and you have 5 minutes for rebuttal time.
I don't have any rebuttals, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead and close the hearing, and we will discuss the case.
Sounds like to me that they're open, as he usually is, to working with staff on a few things. The one thing I heard sounds like it's kind of odd to all of us, potentially those two columns. I do think that's something that staff can definitely take care of, whether it's the roof or one of the 3 or 4 other ideas we kicked around. I think that's a condition that we can probably place and live with.
You know, I could honestly see the same thing too with those columns. It's not so much the change in length of the individual columns as we go down the line, but it's how it's landed.
It's the pier.
I agree. I think that's the most awkward thing.
The pier
is that
looks foreign.
I get carrying datum lines. We hear that all the time in design studio. What's that datum? But in this case, I think because it is transitory, they have to do something different. So I'm not so concerned about the roof lines, to be quite honest. I get there's some discomfort, but the biggest thing for me are those 2 columns. And maybe they're not even in the right place. I mean, that's such a small span, that space between the 2 porches. You may not even need that.
That's a good point. You may not even need
So, been there, done it differently. So there are some opportunities there. Just because they're there doesn't mean they're correct, you know? So.
But we are dealing with something that's on a tweak level. It's not
Exactly.
Nothing
I agree.
fundamentally wrong.
I agree. I think, let's back up. I think for the most part, this project's on the right track. And I think most of us up here probably agree with that thought. It's just little not nitpicking, but detailing, right? Getting those final strokes correct, you're almost there. So I think we are more or less on the same page. Anyone ready to entertain a motion then? I'm gonna start picking people.
I
Yeah,
move,
she's ready.
I move to
That's why
grant
I'm
our
ready.
certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in case ARC 22-107 for the property located at 404 East Ross Avenue. That's
Correct. I know.
with the following conditions: that fence locations, material, and height be approved by staff, that the scoring in the ribbons and driveway are added to the plans and approved by staff, that all window specifications are approved by staff in relation to the existing primary structure, hardware and lighting is all approved by staff, that a new solution is approved by staff for the rear currently floating columns, and that the drawings are updated so that window trim details match the primary structure. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines in the city of Tampa for the following reasons. Materials, alignment, and the quality of the district is maintained.
And a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Oh, before we go on, you do understand the conditions put forth and you are willing to move forward?
I am, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries 4-1. Congratulations. This was our nay night. I'm sorry? I know, it's kind of weird, right? I think Dennis did it. He put all Ross on tonight. She was looking up who voted no. She was Kamara. Okay, we have one more for Mr. Schuler. We'll start with the photo essay.
Okay, Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The final, the next item on our agenda this evening, ARC 22-110 at 310 East Ross Avenue, is also located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. The application in front of you this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a primary structure and an accessory structure, as well as site improvements. This is currently a vacant parcel, and I will move into the photo essay here. First, we have the 1920s Sanborn Map of this portion of Tampa Heights with the subject property in green. This is on the north side of Ross Avenue between Morgan and Jefferson Streets. You can see that in the 1920s there was a two-story structure on this site. This is the location map showing the subject site in green on the district and the district boundaries. This is located more toward the southern end of the historic district. And then this is the present day aerials, again showing the subject site outlined in green. And you can see that it is a deed of vacant property. This is the street view looking north onto the subject site from Ross Avenue. This is looking at the property directly to the west. This is a non-contributing building that was constructed right before the historic district was established. And then this is the vacant parcel that is just to the east of the subject parcel. Looking across the street to the south, this is the fabric across Ross Avenue. This photo is looking along Ross to the west. And this is looking east on Ross toward Jefferson Street. This is a view in the alley. Here we are looking west in the alley. And then looking east in the alley. And then this shot is showing the lot looking south into the lot from the alley. So with that, I'll have the applicant come forward and present his request.
Ralph Struhler, 2401 North Howard Avenue. I have been sworn. So we were on 200 block of Ross, then 400 block of Ross, and now we're on 300 block of Ross. All the same street. This is a.
You're gonna need to press the button again to do the,
Well, yeah, I will.
thank you.
Yeah. There we go. And let's back up here. All right, so just to start, this is a deep and skinny lot. It's been vacant for as long as I've lived there, 25 years. Previously, I believe 2 years ago, a duplex was proposed here, and that owner chose to not build that and sold to the current owner, Mr. Cody. And it's we're proposing a single-family house with a detached accessory structure, primarily because it's only a 50-foot wide lot. We really don't believe that you can really fit a multifamily structure on a 50-foot wide lot. It's very deep, it's 131 deep, but that's pretty typical for Tampa Heights. And so with that premise, we looked at other structures within the district. One that came out, of course, very prominently was this house, which is adjacent to the duplex, the townhouse development we saw previously. It has significant stature, probably bigger and taller than the one we're proposing. This one here, of course, has second-story porch. That's a sleeping porch from a 1910 house, I think. Mike Spokus came up earlier, spoke about that house. He lives at that house. This house here, house I designed actually about 15 years ago. Is Mike's neighbor directly to the east. So we're kind of marching our way down from west to east on Ross Avenue till you get to our proposed subject site. Our proposed subject site, which is 310 Ross. There's a couple other smaller, more diminutive houses. This house adjacent was built in the late 90s, just prior to the historic district. This site to the east is a vacant lot, and same size and dimensions as this lot. It's 50 by 131. So what we're proposing is, again, a single-family house, first floor, mainly public spaces. Again, two-car oversized garage off of the rear. No curb cuts in the front at all. Again, mainly because it's a narrow lot. I know people can squeeze driveways in a 50-foot lot, but we just, second floor is all bedrooms. We actually have inside of the roof a master suite. So here is what she looks like. So this one, so we looked at all kinds of Victorian frame vernacular and some farmhouse aesthetics. I kind of threw them all in the washing machine, and I think came up with something that's, I think, unique, but I think fits the character of what these other houses on Ross Avenue are doing. So What's unique, of course, about this house is we have this double French door that faces the street. We have a covered one here, and then a balcony with aluminum, made to look like painted wrought iron. I'm here, and this dotted line is the required zoning regulations based on a RM24 zoning, again at 30 feet. Top of our building is at 38 feet, which is extremely similar to that house, again, that we referenced on next to the townhouses at 204, I think, Ross Avenue. I'm sorry, 205. This is on even side of the street. So we're trying to be extremely, I think, welcoming here with again, a lot of fenestration. We have your entrance is here on the side, but a lot of activity, of course, and then the brick veneer here, brick veneer on the posts. We have a large, kind of oversized skirt board here, double skirt board. We have header heights at 9'4". Again, trying to accentuate its verticality because it's a skinny house in theory. It's a tall house, and it's trying to evoke that folk Victorian aesthetic, but also trying to marry some contemporary ideas. The rear has again an undercut porch. Second floor is over the top of the first. We have 10-12 pitch on the main house, and then the gables are also the hip dormers. So I have a hip dormer facing west, which is a stair tower, and I have a triple hip dormer facing east, which provides additional light in that spaces up inside of the attic space. Again, we have a lot of extra fenestration here. We're proposing a dimensional shingle roof, same hardy board siding, same 6-inch corner boards, 4-inch trim, but more either 6/6 windows or even a lot here. I got some 8/8 when the windows get larger, and then a lot of similar little transoms on the first floor. The transoms are everywhere on the first floor. So you see you have an 8-foot header, and then a 9'4" header, and then a secondary transom window. The rear accessory structure is a 2-car garage with a secondary take that back. Secondary bathroom for a future pool potentially. Not presenting a pool today, but that's something that is on the mind. The two sides have additional fenestration up high here. The north, which faces the alley, again, we actually, what I'm going to show is have some lights in here, and then a rear door, which would be a glass door. These two doors, which face the courtyard, would also be glass doors. This one would probably be frosted because it's into the bathroom. This same double window is the same window that you would see again here on higher up on that accessory structure. This accessory structure is also proposed to be a little taller, mainly because this owner would like to have a lift system. So you would have pull 2 cars in, lift, and pull 2 cars in again. So you would get 4 cars in the garage. So we have just a little extra height to accomplish that. But going to the wall section here. Again, it's really two floors and then an attic space. I have a secondary, this is kind of through the front. And this is a secondary on the side, east and west walls, where we have a whole system of floor joists and then a roof system that all integrates. Again, same concept here. All the windows and all the doors would be set in 2 inches for to create that depth we're looking for. And let's see here. Similar detailing I've seen previously on how all these windows and doors get dealt with. And this is, again, different style of architecture to some degree, but similar in its scale and massing and proportion. The difference is, of course, we don't have turrets and things. This is another house Brett did. It's my neighbor also. Designed this house. We're proposing brick, a gray iron spot brick. An entry door, 3/4 light entry door, something like that, with some lighting. We'd have cans, but any wall sconce would be this. Similar. Door hardware. So we'd have this kind of detailing for the railing of the balcony, where we'd have some aluminum. It has trim top and bottom and some detail on the OG, and then a simple vertical picket. But again, a nice looking aesthetic on that. Same type of windows. And similar type garage door again, off of the rear. Clope 3-4 light carriage style door. And let's review the packet. So there is an existing design exception 1 for the project, which is where we are at on the site plan, which is where's that site plan? So this, based on lot averaging, we're at 14 feet to the very beginning of our front porch. Also, there's, I'm sure you saw, a very large grand oak tree here in the right-of-way, totally keeping that, totally staying far enough away from it. All of these trees have already been approved to be removed. Most of them are in very poor condition for 30 years, no one ever maintaining them. And a lot of them are camphors, which are considered invasive. We did show some scoring as requested. The mechanical, we're going to have 2 units here. We'll have landscaping screening around that, of course. I think I showed quite a few different other houses that have similar scale and massing. So our soffits are going to be 24-inch overhangs. They're enclosed soffits. Most of the frame vernacular, most of the houses in Tampa Heights have enclosed soffits. Very rarely are they exposed rafter tails with any, especially on this style house. So siding will be smooth. We do have a unique entry. I won't disagree, but I think it has a lot of character, and I think it could be an asset. I think that there's additional ways to make that work. There is a house on Oregon Street in Hyde Park, of course, but a similar house in its scale and massing this is on Oregon. Has some similarities, of course, it's all board and batten, and it has a lot of these gable ends. Doesn't do it exactly the same way, but it has some similarities that my client found attractive. And anyways, and this is in the historic district within Hyde Park. I think we considered all of the staff report, and willing to talk and discuss anything you might have to say. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to the staff report.
Thank you. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The staff found this application to be consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. You will note that there were a number of conditions listed in the staff report. Most of these were regarding clarification of details and also clarification and simplification of the style and the details shown and how they relate to that style. Also requests for historic reference for a number of the details. So I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to public comment. If there's anyone here to speak for or against the project and wanting to come forward, please do at this time. And sir, you've been sworn in, yes?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Edward Bembry.
I'm sorry, can you say your name one more time?
Edward Bembry. I live at 404 East Ross, about a half a block from the proposed project. I'm quite happy that that lot will finally be filled. It's been empty for the last, I've been in the neighborhood for 13 years. So I think it'll be a nice addition to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward? Seeing no one, we'll close this portion, and you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Schuler.
No, you have to ask questions.
Oh, shiza. Sorry. You have the script. I'm so sorry. We'll ask questions, and we'll start with whomever may have one. Yes, sir.
Sir, I understand the nature of the long skinny site and trying to put it here as much as you possibly can, but I have one little item. Actually, it's a big item. There's a certain, you take the porch away from your front elevation, there's a certain flatness to what you're presenting here. And I understand what you are trying to accomplish with your brickwork for your entry block. To me, I would think that that element would be better served if it were actually a block, if you will, something that had a meaningful depth with relationship to everything else that's happening on this elevation. Have you examined that interplay between what is the base building, which is where your French doors are, versus what's happening to your entry block, which is what's happening on your porch line? Because your elevation is suggesting that there's some interplay here, but the plan does not.
Yeah, so the plan does have that pop out, but probably not enough. I'll probably agree with your recommendation to make it more significant. It's currently about 8 to 12 inches, and then there's some other elements that bring it out further. But the main structure itself, which is where the brick veneer is only about 12 inches, and I think we could certainly explore making that deeper. It's not a problem.
I could see all sorts of different interplay, even like, you know, a deeper block, but that door is still inset back into it.
Sure,
all sorts of different combinations. But I think there's that one piece in itself that it says a lot, but it's not showing what it has.
Understood.
Any other questions?
Can you bring up the front facade again?
Sure.
You mentioned what you're going for here is Victorian style, is that correct?
Yeah, I would call it kind of an empire or an urban Victorian.
Have you looked at any other options in the gable finishes?
Yeah, I knew that was gonna be a question. I think we're open to other finishes. It's funny that all my clients seem to like the board and batten these days, and I know it's something that's maybe trendy, for lack of a better word, but I think there is just historic precedent for in many places, maybe as much, not as much in Tampa Heights. Again, on this particular project, we're trying to express that verticality, which I think helps here. But I'm certainly open to other ways.
Well, the main reason I'm asking the question is you mentioned Victorian, and to me, board and batten is foreign to the Victorian. So I just kind of trying to get some clarity there. And then as far as reducing the different siding materials, has there been any thought to potentially going with the brick across more of the area?
I think we're open to exploring that. I mean, if we could expand the brick into this gable, maybe enlarge it, make it a little wider, doing some other, I think, things that could make that expression more substantial. Again, I have some other brick pieces too. As it pertains to the what's the appropriate material in these gables. Obviously, we like the board and batten, or we wouldn't have showed up today with it. But I think we're open to fish scale or other kind of
The board and batten is very, very popular right now. But I'm not sure it's period specific.
Right.
And
so
the question is you've already answered the question. You're open to other ideas.
Correct.
The finish on this front porch roof looks to be a metal of some sort.
So haven't fully decided how we're going to build that so it's watertight, waterproof. We definitely want a waterproof.
Not that roof, I'm sorry, the front door.
Talking this one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we would end up doing that the same material. I mean, a lot of times that little roof is sometimes copper or something. It's a little, and I think we're open to whatever we feel is appropriate. I think that the idea was that would be that one little element that's different than the rest of the roofs.
I think you got an opportunity there. And the material for the front steps all the way across, is that wood?
No, all this would be probably a stone veneer of some sort.
All right, that's all I have for now.
Other questions for the applicant?
Can you confirm the overhangs throughout the structures?
They're all, well, 24 inches for the primary structures. These smaller dormers would be smaller overhangs, 16 inches on those.
Is there a reason for going from 2 foot to 16 inches?
Well, yeah, I think it would look inappropriate, and the scale and proportion of all of that, let me put that elevation up, would be, I don't think be as successful. There it is, yeah, thanks, Brett. So I mean, it's not dramatically different, but it's 8 inches smaller, more than likely.
And what is the overhang on that front door little roof?
Yes, so this front door is going to be about 24 inches.
Is that currently shown as 24 inches?
Let's see, the side elevation of that, where is that one? I think it's the one underneath it. Yeah, there it is. There it is. It's about, you know, this whole assemblage probably sticks out about 36 inches total.
Do you have any historic reference for this entry feature?
So there were a lot of now defunct Victorians on 7th Avenue that there. I didn't bring specific examples, but there was more of this style house in the district, in particular, because south of 7th Avenue used to be the old St. Joseph's Hospital, and on 7th Avenue used to be many physicians' houses, and we have some dormers in here, and I can certainly bring back some other things. Wasn't prepared to talk extensively about that today, but is there a specific house that looks just like this? No.
It's not a specific house that looks just like that. It's a reference for this feature
Right.
that we're looking for. And same thing for a reference for the French doors and the porch form on your front elevation.
Well, certainly plenty of houses have French doors in the front. Now, are they double French doors like this? Not sure.
Do you have any historic reference for a steel guardrail?
That was not a steel guard. It's an aluminum guardrail. Again, similar to the show.
I think it's more the material being metal versus
Okay.
wood.
So again, perfectly happy to discuss that if we want to think that's not appropriate and we want to make it wood. I personally believe that painted or metal guardrails are appropriate. I showed a reference, again, a different style of house, but certainly it's within the district that has metal, again, thin. What we're trying to do is getting thin pickets, express its verticality, and try and lead your eye up.
I don't have any more questions.
Can we look at your site plan, please?
Mm-hmm.
Will there be any fencing or gates on this property?
We haven't proposed any so far. We would probably come back to staff at some point when we decide what we're going to do and if we'll maybe build a pool shortly thereafter.
Okay, and then screening from the mechanicals, it looks like you're intending to put some sort of landscaping features so that it's
Correct.
hidden from the public view.
Correct.
Are there any mechanical units for the garage accessory structure proposed at all?
No, it's an unconditioned garage.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure there's a bathroom being shown.
Yeah, we'll just vent it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in this front porch. I really don't understand where the steps are. So can you draw on this with a heavier pen where the actual stairs or steps are?
Sure, I don't have a pen, but hold on.
Or maybe just use your finger. It's okay.
I have a fat finger, so it's a little hard.
Yeah. Mine would get in the way too.
So yeah, this is all scoring. Again, this would be like, thin.
I just want to know where the steps are.
Right.
Okay.
So steps here, here, and then here, and then these steps here and here. So all of you kind of, leak out to the front porch.
So it's a very odd condition. I know there was a question already asked about historic precedent. The way that this porch is being detailed is something that I would expect on an exterior porch for rear condition. I also am not so sure about the length of your return when you go back to the columns, that being very usable or even safe. So my concern here is that there were some considerations already for potentially revisiting this, and I do think, I would expect that you would be open to revisiting that in terms of the layout and understanding the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily those two front risers, but at that entry L configuration there.
Right.
I don't want to beat a dead horse because we already said we didn't. But the paver condition at the front, oh, is that another one? Okay.
No, I'm just thinking. to
Oh, in your
myself.
head, okay, you're thinking out loud.
Yeah.
The paver on the porch, that, I really don't understand from a historic precedent feature at a front porch.
Okay.
So it would be much, much more helpful if you can come to these with a little bit more information for us to understand your thinking process.
Understood.
The same note applies in here. One of the staff conditions was to provide setback dimensions and elevations from grade of surrounding properties to show consistency with the historic district.
Yeah, that was gonna be another one of my questions. Have you done studies that show the elevation? And when we ask these questions, it's not the immediate two adjacent lots, it's the entire block that that property sits on. So have you looked at the elevations of the surrounding properties and also their setbacks so that there's that average consideration?
So this was previously lot averaged, so on this specific lot, I didn't put a lot of time and effort because someone had previously done all that time and effort to establish what the lot average should be on this lot, frankly. But I mean, I live 2 houses down, walk this street every single day. The house is east of here faces Jefferson, doesn't face Ross. As you work west, this adjacent house is contemporary, so it's low. Ours would be, we're proposing 24 inches, which is pretty standard. The house past that is high. It's a 1910 house. It's probably 36 inches above. But again, that immediate adjacent house is below what we would propose. So that's why we're, saying 24 inches. And then beyond that is that big 4-unit apartment building, which is all on grade because its garage is on grade. So I think, again, we've kind of found the sweet spot.
Okay.
The same question applies, I think, to the roof heights and the roof forms for the street.
So I showed about 5 houses within the district on this street, and I can show them again, that have similar scale and massing. Now, do I know the exact roof height? Of course I don't. I didn't get up with a ladder and try and scale on top of a roof to figure out how tall it is. But in general, it has very, very similar massing and scale. So we'll just review real quick. So this house, of course, didn't have a great picture because I wasn't looking to, this house is about 34 feet in tall. It's my next door neighbor. This house is much, much taller. It's probably 40 feet tall. It's 2 blocks down on the opposite side of the street. There it is in the front. Same thing. Very large gable. We have more, but similar in scale. This house is has a very large mansard style roof. It has large first floor, 10, 11 feet. Been in this house many, many times. Probably the top of that roof is similar to what we're proposing within a couple of feet. This house again has similar railing details. No, it's a different style house, but it has some of that same thing. French doors in the front. Second floor balcony you can walk on. Same street.
So just for reference, when we're trying to understand the block, it's helpful for us to see like walking down the street. Because we understand that you bring photographs of projects that help align with your design, and that does not give us a full understanding of what the street is. Okay. So that's why we're asking, to get an understanding of the city, the area around this house that you're proposing, so that we understand.
And I understand your question, and historically, staff report has always provided some of that, and I understand you want more in depth, and I understand why, but I don't know where to start and stop. I mean, you want 17 pictures or 10 or 100?
It's contextual, right. And I think just saying that is enough. Okay. And I think there are plenty of examples of others who've come before you that are showing us. I do have other questions. I want to kind of close this out. So there was a question in the staff report about a mullion between the paired windows, that it needed to be wider than the side trim. Can we look at your elevations and
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
that?
I did change that.
Okay.
It's, originally this paired window was only a 4-inch trim. I increased it to 5.5, 6-inch trim.
So they all match now,
They
it
all
looks
match
like in
now,
the
yes.
elevations?
Yeah, consistent throughout the project. That would
Okay.
be the same detail that was also shown on my detailing of the windows.
So that is more consistent with the historic reference. There was a note about the sills being 2-inch wood or composite, not precast concrete. I guess there was some detail at some point that called out concrete or indicated a concrete sill.
No, I don't know where that came from.
From the base of the
Just
porch.
confirm that it is to be wood or composite sill.
It's wood or, it's composite, yes.
Okay. In terms of the mullions that are being shown in the elevations, what is the intent for those? Are they true divided lights, simulated lights?
They would be simulated lights. They
Okay.
would not be true divided lights.
Okay. Can we look at your elevations for the accessory structure one more time, please?
Uh-huh. There's one, and there's the other ones.
So this is a question for staff, Ms. Lund. There's a note here about incorporating additional, reconsidering the use of skirt trim on the accessory structure in order to provide a better transition at the openings. In my mind, when I read skirt, that means that the bottom of the siding does something as it transitions to the ground where it meets
Right.
the trim. Is that the intent of the comment there in staff report?
Yes, the intent is that there be a transitional piece, whether it be a skirt or perhaps we would call it just a band.
Yeah, I had
something.
a skirt. I had a skirt, and I interpreted that you wanted me to remove it because I had one, so I removed it this week.
So is that true, Ms. Lund? Was it actually in the documentation and the suggestion was to remove it? Because I
No,
myself.
my recollection is that I don't recall there being one there, and I recollect that the comment was with the intention of adding one. I can double check the drawings.
Hi, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review Manager.
Yes,
I
sir.
think that came up through our staff submission meeting, and there was an awkward detail that I felt with the skirt board that now has been eliminated in this version.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
It's been removed.
And then the additional fenestration in the accessory structure, I think we went through all that, but have all those comments been addressed, Ms. Lund, in terms of fenestration at the accessory structure?
Yes,
Okay.
they have. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that takes care of all the staff notes that were outstanding on my list. Any other questions for the applicant?
I just want to clarify, you mentioned the steps are a stone?
Well, it's gonna be a concrete step, but then we're gonna, again, I'm happy to converse with staff if we feel that's not an appropriate solution, but, you know, the first inclination was some sort of a paver or stone.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an answer for
Yes,
discussion.
yes, veneer, stone veneer.
Thank you.
You do not have any documents that shows any intent for any of your finishes, such as the paver, the concrete pavers, or anything?
Currently, that would be the only thing I don't have is the paver, that is.
Okay,
true. Yes.
I remember seeing the railing and the hardware.
Right.
Any other questions? No? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Schuler.
We'll see how it goes, but I understand this is maybe a little bit out of the ordinary for the group, and some of it was intentional. And I really, really think that this house has great promise. But as I listen here, I think I'd like to come back.
May.
On May 2nd and try and clean it up for you, so that way it'd be an easier time to get the rest of this information and I think have a successful second meeting.
So are you requesting a continuation?
I don't know. Let's see how ARC discusses, but I just wanted to understand when the timing would be
Okay.
But for now, let's continue.
No other comments then for now?
No.
All right. Go ahead and close the public hearing and we will discuss the case.
Can you put up the elevations, please? Oh.
Unless you want to do,
No, I
we
didn't.
can put up the elevations, but.
Yeah, no, I don't want to ask him anything.
Okay. Can you put up the elevations?
Just put up the main
Yep.
front elevation.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Well, you can put the two of them together.
There
Thank you.
There is just too much going here for me to approve this. There are too many materials. It is inconsistent with the forms that are found in the district. You're really close to the sidewalk with that front porch, and then you have this invitation to, go up the stairs and go straight up to those doors and say hi. And that's just a little more than we typically see in this district. And I think that there is even a better way to handle the third floor. And so I feel that it really needs a continuation.
I will parrot to a certain degree a certain discomfort with what we're looking at with these two elevations and how that would fit into the greater scheme of things that we know of Tampa Heights, which is a grab bag of very, very many different things. But, you made a question earlier about, whether or not this is truly Victorian. I don't see the Victorian part of it at all. If anything, I'm seeing something more of a Tyrolean vernacular that belongs in Pennsylvania somewhere. I just don't see the appropriate fit that we would expect in an area that is predominated by a variety of scales of bungalow or, if you will, the Tampa vernacular. It's a fit problem. It's not the scale of the building. I don't think the scale of the building in itself is a problem. I think it's the whole nature of the assemblage and the fit and finish that puts it entirely out of place.
I just feel like there's been multiple avenues pulled from here, multiple designs, and tried to mesh it together. There's parts of it I feel like I'm, walking down the old part of downtown Savannah. Then there's other parts that I'm not sure where I'm at. I just feel like there's some more work that needs to be done.
On the other hand, one thing I can understand what you're doing with your railing on your second level porch. There's a certain spindly quality to the aluminum railing system that you are proposing, and although we see or may expect wood I could see how an appropriate finished metal railing system that has that spidery quality can add to, to the effect that you're looking for a certain transparency. And here, under this circumstance, it doesn't drive me nuts. It's like everything else. Every porch rail you see is going to get stained or painted in one form or another. So I think the more important thing here is, because of the assemblage of the parts, is what's the color. We're not dealing with color here, but it is an important consideration with this.
Understood.
I think there's some positive things here, but our charge is not to approve or deny bits and pieces. It's a project as a whole.
As a whole.
I think just being really mindful of giving reference to design components that you're putting together is really important when you're proposing a new design in the historic district or even an addition. So being consistent and making sure that the design elements you're proposing belong in the historic district where you're building.
I also want to add, for this particular property, I know that you inherited something from before, from the prior, but you have to remember not all of us have sat for a very long time, and you have to pretend that we don't know anything about any property you bring forth.
Okay.
So you do a disservice to your client, actually, when you don't come to the table with all the information that you have, and you probably have it because you've inherited this property. So you can go to staff, you can look at old records, you can get a lot of that information. I agree with everything being said by my colleagues here. This is a panache of styles. It's like the girl went into her wardrobe, didn't know what to take out, and put on for the affair. I know you, and I know that you can design. Form and mass is not necessarily an issue for you, but I think you're losing a lot here. And you just need to clean the slate and say, hey, I know there are trends and there are fashions and all of that. And these houses were built during a time when there were fashions and trends, and that's what's reflected in these neighborhoods. But still there's care. And you just have to say, this is the move I want to make. This is the reason why, and you got to sell it to us, right? And you know the rules of the game. You've been doing this for a while. There are many different styles here. I don't think we've hit all of them, but that isn't the point. Pick something, be happy with it, consult with your client, look around you. I know that you work in this neighborhood, but look around you beyond and with fresh eyes, and bring us something that we can believe in. But I agree. I don't think there's anything here that we can tie our horse to at this point.
Agreed.
So before we make any motions, can we ask, do they want to continue or not, Counsel?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Is that what you're gonna?
Yes, we are prepared to ask for continuance.
This is your opportunity.
What agenda?
Next available agenda is May 2nd, 2002, public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-110 for the property located at 310 East Ross Avenue for the May 2nd, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
A second?
I will second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye and indicate so by raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, 5-0. Thank you. We have one more item on the agenda. Did our client?
Actually, Madam Chair, as a courtesy, if you could call ARC 22-225 or -25 to see if there is a representative present.
In the case of ARC 22-25, is there an agent or owner present for that case? Seeing none.
Seeing none, the staff recommends a continuation to the June 6, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 PM.
Do we also need to do the same for 22-138?
Yes, please.
Can we do those together?
Sure.
Can we get a motion, please, to the June 6, 2022 hearing date?
I move to grant continuance in case ARC 22-25 and 22-138 for the property located at 507 East Hugh Street to the June 6, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 PM.
I second the motion.
All those in favor, please state aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. We have one more item on the agenda for tonight. It's the election of officers. This is due to the fact that our chair is not continuing with us, and we need to elect a new chair.
Good evening, Commissioners. Once again, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. As your Vice Chair stated, we do have a need to elect a chair. I do remind you that we have our normal elections in May of each year, so this will be a very short duration of service, but we do need to fill these two positions. So normally what I will do is take nominations for individuals for both the chair and the vice chair position, and that if someone is nominated, I would ask that they confirm their willingness to serve in that capacity until the next election. And then we would take a show of hands to support the nomination. If there's more than one nomination, we'll repeat the cycle again. So we'll begin with the position of chairperson. Is there a nomination for the position of chairperson?
I nominate Susan Claus Smith.
Okay, we have a nomination for Commissioner Smith. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, is the commissioner willing to serve in that capacity for the remainder? Okay, we have a nomination by a show of hands. Can we affirm that nomination?
Affirm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to the vice chair position. Once again, we'll take a nomination for that position.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Shauna Boyd for vice chair.
Okay, we have a nomination for Commissioner Boyd. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, does Commissioner Boyd agree to serve in that capacity for the remainder of this term? Thank you. And we need a show of hands again to affirm the nomination. Congratulations. And with that, we can move to adjournment, Madam Chair.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.